Welcome back. All right, so I want to talk about Detroit. There's a lot of discussion about why does he hate Detroit? Why does he ignore Detroit? Why does he? All right, we'll do a video on Detroit. The reality is that I see Detroit as a team that may very well end up making the playoffs. It's going to be close. I think they've had a schedule so far in November that has been good for them. I think it's been a schedule that has been challenging in places, but not that bad. And in terms of their opposition, they've had teams that they've played against that they should be able to beat. And they've been able to do that. Now, one thing for Detroit, of course, is it's not that long ago that they weren't seen as a team that was likely to beat very many teams. Right now, they're 11-5-4. They're 10 points behind Boston for first in the division. They're 5 points behind Toronto for second in the division. They're 1 point clear of Tampa Bay for third. And then they're 3 points clear of Montreal, the next divisional rival that's beneath them after Tampa Bay. The 11-5-4 record is a good record. It's 11 wins in 20 games. Last year, they were 8-9-3 through their first 20 games. 2020-2021, they were 5-12-3. That was a brutal season. 2019-2020, they were 7-12-1. 2018-2019, they were 9-9-2. And 2017-2018, they were 10-8-2 at this same point in the season. So they've definitely improved. Their last playoff appearance, of course, was 2016. So in the event that they make it this year, that's 7 years outside the playoffs. And as far as rebuilds go, I think they've done quite well. Once Steve Yzerman took over, he got the assignment, and he's done quite well with what he's been given. So this month, we go through this month's results. And I'm doing this a little different than other videos. I like to do every team look differently. So for Detroit, on November 3rd, they won at home against Washington 3-1. Then on the 5th, they won 3-0 against the New York Islanders. On the 6th, they had an overtime win at the New York Rangers 3-2. Then they had a shootout loss 3-2 at home against Montreal before losing 8-2 at home against the New York Rangers. Then they go on the road. They lost 4-3 at LA, and then they lost 3-2 in overtime at Anaheim. So that's the spot there where they end up with a bit of a drop in the power rankings, and then there's the last 4 games. At San Jose, they won 7-4. At Columbus, they won 6-1. So a combined difference of 13-5 there, which helped to fix their goal differential problem that they had. They also won at home against Nashville 3-0, and then the overtime win against Arizona 4-3. So 5 regulation wins, 2 overtime wins, 2 regulation losses, 1 overtime loss, and 1 shootout loss. Now, of course, I always treat shootouts the same as ties. I don't even watch shootouts. We'll talk about that again in a video later today, but I don't. If there's multiple games on and a game's going to a shootout, I just stop going back to that game. If it's the only game on, I'll watch the shootout, but it's not really a hockey play, and I don't really have a vested interest in who wins the shootout in general. So when you look at the power rankings from last night, the only team that's ahead of them who they've played is the New York Islanders. And they beat the New York Islanders 3-0, and that's also a playoff team. The rest of these teams, you have the LA Kings that are in a playoff spot. Outside of that, though, they're not playoff teams. So, again, they've had a schedule that's been favorable to them. They've taken advantage of that schedule. They've built up a pretty solid overall standing. They're 15th on the board right now. Last season at this point, they were 25th. And in 2019, they were 31st. So they have moved up year over year from where they were. And when you look at the scoring, Dylan Larkin has really come into his own. 9 goals, 14 assists for 23 points in 20 games. Kubalik, 9 goals, 12 assists, 21 points in 20 games. He's been a fantastic pickup. I don't expect him to stay at a point per game the whole season, but he's been very good. Hronek, in 20 games, 6 goals, 12 assists, 18 points. I don't expect that pace to keep up either, but Hronek's been very good too. Especially considering the amount of criticism he's taken over the years. Perron has been an excellent pickup. He has 6 goals, 10 assists for 16 points in 20 games. Raymond started slow, but he's picked it up. 6 goals, 8 assists, 14 points. And again, that's probably below what people would have projected for him, but the season's still young. He's still, I think, going to end up around the 65-point mark. Andrew Kopp, it's been a bit of a struggle for him, but he's starting to figure it out. 2 goals, 9 assists for 11 points for him. Moritz Seider has been better lately as well. A goal and 8 assists for him after a slow start. Rasmussen really seems to have embraced his role and started to show power forward tendencies, and the net drives he's been getting in recent games have been impressive. 3 goals, 6 assists, 9 points. Adam Ernie, 2 goals, 7 assists. People know I like Ernie. Suter, 4 goals, 4 assists. Mata, really strong offensive numbers early, which surprised me. Those have, of course, petered out, but still 2 goals, 5 assists. That's fine. And then you've got Sundqvist. In 13 games, he has a goal and 6 assists. Solid physical presence out there. Berggren in 7 games, 1 goal, 4 assists. He has not looked out of place when he's had a chance with the Detroit Red Wings. Sherratt, 2 goals, 3 assists, 5 points. I still think Sherratt probably got overpaid by a bit by Detroit, but it's fine. They don't have a cap problem. So they're a team that absolutely at the deadline could potentially pick up a guy. Veleno, 3 goals and assists, 4 points in 19 games. Veleno's had some good games in there. Bertuzzi's only played 7 games thus far, 1 goal, 3 assists, 4 points. I don't think we've seen what Bertuzzi can do yet. And I do think his numbers will improve as he gets healthier. Soderblom, all of the excitement. He's had 2 goals in 13 games. Probably not quite ready for a top role, but he's going to be, and he's huge. Vrana's only played 2 games, a goal and an assist for Vrana. There's always the injury concern with Vrana. Haig in 12 games, 2 assists. Lindstrom, 1 assist in the 13 games he's played. Zarnik was called up for 4 games, had a goal. Luff, 7 games before he got injured with a goal. Osterley has a goal in the 10 games he's played. Zadina, no points in the 9 games he's played. And Smith, Giovanni Smith, with just 2 games played so far this year and no points. It's a good deep team. And what's interesting with them, too, is that there's still some good prospects yet to come in and play. And then you look at the goaltending. Husso's been a revelation. 9-2-3 with a .919 save percentage. That's including a game where he got absolutely drilled with goals and goals and goals against. Nedeljkovic, the numbers have been a little bit worse. 2-3-1 with an .873 save percentage. And as this season rolls along, if Nedeljkovic's numbers don't get better, do they look for a solution when it comes to the backup goaltending spot? Because you don't want to overplay Husso and have him, tire himself out and have his numbers start to suffer, right? So it'll be interesting to see how they manage the goaltending. But their upcoming schedule is really where I think they have the opportunity to show they're going to remain in the playoffs, or maybe this record's bloated a little bit by the teams that they've played against, and so we'll see. Again, their differential now is a +5 for goals. We'll see if it stays there. On Monday, they're at home against Toronto. That's a big test right there. The Toronto-Detroit games are always fun anyways. Wednesday, they're at home against Buffalo. Buffalo's been very up and down. They've been more down recently than up. Although with Samuelsson back in the lineup, they seem to be a better team. Then they're at home against Vegas, which is a good test. So 2 out of 3 games right there on this homestand. Good, solid tests. And if they win both of those, you're absolutely going to see them move up. Then they, on Sunday, go to Columbus. That's followed by a Tuesday matchup at Tampa. That's huge right there, right? And then they go to Florida on Thursday. Now, Florida doesn't have an asterisk because they're not above the playoff line, which is odd because I'm used to Florida being above the playoff line. I think they're 2 points back of Detroit right now. Either way, it's kind of a logjam there. But yeah, for Florida, they're due for a bit of a turnaround, and so we'll see. Dallas, they then play in Dallas after that. So think about it. They've got games against Toronto, Vegas, Tampa, Florida, and Dallas over the next 7 games. If they win all of those games and they're still 15th on the power rankings, yep, I hate them. You got it. And then they're at home against Carolina after that. So this is a pretty good stretch of games here. Then they go to Minnesota, and then they're at home against Ottawa. So it is going to be a tougher schedule for them for the rest of this month and then early in December as we get towards the Christmas break. But again, if they can manage to keep their record, really good, and if they can manage to win more games than they lose, that will help. If you look at their prospects, I just wanted to throw this in here because there are a lot of prospects of interest to me anyways. Theodor Niederbach, center right winger. Where does he fit in? He's probably going to be a third liner at the NHL level. That's the expectation. He'll do a little bit of everything. Kind of like an Andrew Kopp, right? Donovan Sabrango, I was impressed with him at the World Juniors. I'll be interested to see if he does end up coming up and playing for Detroit anytime soon. I'm going to say Dallas. And then William Wallinder, a defenseman as well. I covered him in his draft class, and I remember when he got drafted, I was paying attention to where he went. And again, once you're drafted by Steve Yzerman, I think your odds go up that you're going to be a pretty good player. Sebastian Cossa, of course, goaltender. He's only played a couple of games at Grand Rapids this year, and his number's not great. But again, goaltenders do tend to take a little bit longer to develop. There are exceptions, but generally it does take goaltenders a bit longer to develop. Marco Kasper, a center, projects to be a top 2 center in the NHL. Could be a star for the Detroit Red Wings. And then there's Simon Edvinsson. And Edvinsson looked decent in what I saw of him early, and so we'll see whether or not he ends up in the lineup soon. He's been playing in Grand Rapids. His overall numbers are decent. He's scoring relatively well, so we could end up seeing him getting called up by Detroit. I don't know when that would take place. I would think probably later on in the season. And it's one of those things where if they don't need to use him, they should probably leave him in Grand Rapids. But at some point in time, if you have injuries on the blue line where Edvinsson would fit in really well, maybe Edvinsson gets that call up. There are still a lot of players to come into this lineup. There's guys that aren't even on that list. Detroit could very well be one of those bandwagon teams, I'll say 2 seasons from now. Right now, to me, again, they look like a good middle-of-the-pack team. And middle-of-the-pack's good. We're in a 32-team league. So if you're in the top half of a 32-team league, you're doing pretty well. And considering where Detroit was in 2019, this is a pretty good run they're on right now. And so we'll see where they end up. I'll say, at the end of this run here, over the next 10 games, there's some really big games there and really good tests to see exactly where Detroit is at. Because wins against teams like Arizona, Nashville, Columbus, San Jose, that's great. And that's their 4-game winning streak, which is, pushed them up a couple of spots in the power rankings. It's good they don't lose those games, but I'll be more interested to see how they do against a team like Toronto, against Tampa, against Florida, against Carolina, and see how they stack up against the better teams in the league. And we're going to see that soon enough. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. And hey, thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I can hardly believe it's been 7 years since Detroit made the playoffs. Time passes really quickly. Anyways, thanks again for all your support. I'll talk to you again soon.